Now, this will tell us. And that's pretty conclusive. Still going. Close. I think he got it down.
How strong is he?
Welcome back to another edition of the Pick and Go podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Super Rugby. And unfortunately, well, no, I won't say that. Not unfortunately. We're lucky to have Carl Tiley in studio today. Unfortunately, Pity couldn't be with us. He sent me a message last night saying that he had a couple of things he had to do at his son's school. However, if I look out across the bay, it's a beautiful day for diving and fishing. I'm not saying that that's what he's doing. I'm just saying it's a beautiful day for fishing and for diving. However, Carl, thank you very much for jumping in at late notice to the hot seat.
Whatever, man. I can leave whenever you want me to. Like, that's fine.
What the? I don't know how I do it. I just seem to insult all our guests just every single week.
No, thanks for having me.
Well, yeah, we're very, very Highlander heavy here with Carl, a mad Highlanders fan. And, of course, we're joined once again by one of the greatest Highlanders of all time, our very good friend here at the Pick and Go podcast, Jeff Wilson. Jeff, welcome back.
Good morning. I thought you were going to start with, unfortunately, we've got Jeff Wilson back on the show. That's what I thought you were starting with.
Yeah.
Look, it's great to be here. It's an honour to be back with you again.
Fantastic. Now,
Must be nice.
You weren't with us last week, but we did have a little discussion about some of the best almost tries, and your name popped up. I think Pity brought your name up, to be fair, and it was an almost try for you on the right wing for the All Blacks in a Bledisloe Cup Test match, I think in Sydney, and one George Gregan came across and put on one of the great tackles, to be fair.
Oh, you want me to comment on this? I mean, you've pretty much described it play for play, word for word. What more can I add other than the fact that we lost? So, yeah, look, I appreciated watching it again and again, and you guys, regaling in my failure to finish off what was a great opportunity in the All Black jersey. And then that's why Pity's really not here. Let's be honest. Because I was coming in guns. I was ready to fire some shots. He knew, and he's gone into hiding. So, Pity, it doesn't matter how far you go. I will get my opportunity right between the eyes. So I could bring up Wellington College St. Pat Silverstream. Should I bring that up? No, should I bring that up?
Yeah. Why don't you? Because Pity did say that was the big game last weekend out at St. Pat Silverstream. No, was it at? Or was it?
No, it was at Wellington College.
Wellington College.
It was a great game. Great contest. Great finish. Wonderful, wonderful drop goal. Not by his team. I'll tell you what, it was probably some of the worst condition I've ever seen in a game of rugby, to be fair. And I thought both teams and the terraces, who were packed, showed great courage because it was nasty out there. And look, great traditions of high school rugby, and just another great game between two teams that obviously clearly love playing each other.
Spirit thought for those of us that live in Wellington full time. Tough with that weather. Very tough.
You do it hard.
Hey, I've got a couple of tries that I'd like to add into the mix if possible. Both come from the same game, actually. The 2015 Super Rugby final.
2015. Who were the teams in that?
I think the Highlanders beat the Hurricanes.
Fair dinkum.
The first almost try was actually a try, but everyone supporting the Hurricanes thought it wasn't. Elliot Dixon scoring a try there for the Highlanders. But the other one, I think game on the line type stuff, Julian Sevilla knocking the ball on pretty much over the line for the Hurricanes. Any thoughts on that one?
Right, I think it's time to move on. Okay. Where are we up to?
We're behind time already. That's what you're saying.
I was at that game surrounded by Highlanders supporters.
So was I.
I couldn't believe it. It was horrible. Absolute. One of the worst officiatings of... Anyway, we'll move on. We'll have a look back at last week at the punting. We probably shouldn't because it was horrible again. Pity had a couple of bets. He went first scoring play in the Crusaders game to be a Crusaders try. And it was the Blues that dotted down first, I believe, in that semi-final. No good there. And then he went draw at half-time, Chiefs to win. Now, if he had gone draw in the other game at halftime and Crusaders to win, he would have come up trumps. But no, so no luck there for Pity, and he is down $1,235 for the season.
Hang on, why does he get to come back every week? He's down $1,000 on a punting show. What are we doing?
I think he's had one winning selection in the season.
Yeah. Contracts coming out for review. So, there'll be a heavy review into this.
I think he followed the Hurricanes just a wee bit too much, although they weren't the worst. But he usually multied the Canes into the Moana Pacifica, and one of those teams usually let him down. So yeah, Sturley, he was the only successful punter last weekend. He had the Blues to win by 1-12. That was no good. But then he had the Blues plus 12.5. into the Chiefs minus 3.5. So a couple of alternate lines there. And that returned him $50.40. He is now down $109.20 for the season. We'll just have a look at Jeff. I think we've got Jeff's stats here. He's had 4 weeks of punting with us, and he is up $204 for the season. Still up.
Nice.
You had a nice little multi back in round 15. Waratahs into over 55.5 points in the Reds-Canes game. That came up trumps for you. So, yep, up $204 for the season.
I think I'm down 200. I had 2 cracks for nothing.
Where are we? Oh, there you are. Oh, no, who's that? Oh, that's Steve Devine. He's down 500 for the season. He hasn't had a winning selection. And you're down 300.
Oh, 300?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
My contract's looking really good right now.
Yeah, you're safe. You're safe.
Paulie, though, come on, regale us with your, because we know where this is leading to. Like, come on.
We're just trying to keep things above board here, just so
hold everyone accountable.
There's no surprise.
What are you up? Spit it out.
Well, I didn't have a winning bet last weekend. I had 3 bets all around try scorers, and they just didn't do it for mine. But I'm up $1,040.58 for the season.
Yeah, that's good.
Nice.
Right. Should we move on? I've got a question for you two. Should Super Rugby follow the NFL system and decide the venue for the final 3 or 4 years out sort of thing? So it could be a neutral venue unless one of the teams sort of flukes getting into the final when it's sort of scheduled to be in their city. Or are you happy with how it goes at the moment? Carl?
No, they should not. Did you see the crowds on the 2 games on the weekend? We're the 2 most successful teams in Super Rugby history going head-to-head in Christchurch. There were seats there. 2 other very successful Super Rugby teams in Hamilton, and there was thousands of seats there. How do you think we're going to sell out Crusaders Chiefs in Perth in 2030? No chance. No one's turning up.
Wow.
Dumb idea.
It's very matter of fact. It's very matter of fact. I think it's because it didn't have a roof on it. That's why those 2 games didn't. I mean, ultimately, what you talk about this time of the year is you talk about conditions, the challenges that it faces. Look, I get it. I understand the concept behind it, but I agree entirely. I think when you start thinking about Super Rugby and people's willingness to travel in the last minute, you're not sure, you'd have to organise it a week out, or you're talking about it being an event that people are going to and might not necessarily have their teams in it. So you're thinking Super Bowl, it's about the party, pretty much everything that surrounds it. All of a sudden you have to be it's a place you have to be. And could Super Rugby create that? I'm not 100% sure. I don't think it has that type of entertainment level you're talking about surrounding the game for multiple days. You think about the week leading up to the Super Bowl, you've got media days, you've got all sorts of these events leading up to which create a compete event. Whereas rugby, we're isolated, aren't we, it's about one game. And I think one of the great advantages and one of the great challenges in sport is going in someone else's house to win a title. And I think there should be an advantage to being the best team. And that's the only way I think that rugby operates and should be successful. So I agree, KT, as much as in theory it sounds great, I don't think rugby is at that level where you can wrap around the top artists in the world, a halftime show that goes for 45 minutes or something insanely, where you've got some of the best entertainers in the world, you've got the best celebrities in the world. That's what attracts people to this, not just a singular game of rugby. And that's where rugby sits right now as an entertainment package.
So, could we get 660 for a halftime show at a Super Rugby final? Is that something that we could...
It's not going to draw a crowd, though.
You don't think so?
No.
660?
No. It's not the Kiwi way. Like, I think you're either...
What, there for the rugby?
Go to the game or you're not going to go to the game. Like, 660 is not going to get you there. It could be M&M, I don't think. You're either, you're going to go for the game or you're going to go for the concert. You're not. It's not.
No, I think if you're M&M, you pack that stadium out, even if he's only singing 2 or 3 songs at halftime. You'll get some punters there who have very little interest in the rugby, but will go just for M&M.
Mate, M&M might have been too,
Look, I think in rugby, I understand next year there's got to be a super round in Christchurch. I think you've got more chance of something like that being successful on a regular basis and you think about a whole weekend. And I know Super Rugby itself, the competition, the commission are looking at, okay, how do we make that weekend better? Now, they tried it in Melbourne, but because Melbourne really never established itself as a rugby city, even though Melbourne's a great city to go to, I think next year in Christchurch, I think you can get that right. And the stadium is going to be perfect for it. And I think people, because it's going to be something new, we'll see whether or not Super Rugby can find the right balance of what you're talking about entertainment. And it's going to be pretty special, that stadium. I don't know if you guys have seen it up close, but it looks amazing. So I think you're going to get events like that, I think, are going to be more suited to rugby on a one-off weekend where, you've got a wide fan base across, all of the teams in terms of the 11 sides, maybe 12 in the future, who knows, where going to one spot will be a full package.
And the blueprints are there for that too. They've early days Wellington Sevens, and you could just copy and paste from Magic Round in the NRL as well.
Yeah,
you've been to Magic Round, so you know. Yeah. I'm not asking myself the question, though. I'm asking you. I was saying first of all, the venue for Super Round in Brisbane it's a great venue because they shut off the streets. Well, they shut off Caxton Street, and everyone can, and there's good public transport where you get off the train, walk up and straight down Caxton Street, and there are bars and there's food and there's all sorts of things going on. So I don't know what the sort of access is like to the new stadium in Christchurch, but could they create like a party zone sort of thing surrounding the state or in the lead up to the new stadium?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think by the time they finish the precinct around it, which is what their concept is, when you start thinking, and that's my question, whether or not next year they'll have all of that established. But if you think in the vicinity and how close it is to the city, Latimer Square is right there. I mean, all of a sudden, we could go back to the old days where you think Tent City in Dunedin at Southern Rugby Grounds, right next to Carisbrook. I mean, that was the part of the weekend was Tent City, right? If you start thinking about the same type of thing, the bars and restaurants, and then there is space still around the stadium, it is going to be special. It's going to have something unique about it, and I think people would be attracted to that very, very quickly.
What a wild concept, Tent City. I remember I was too young to ever go to Tent City, but I remember Mum and Dad, they frothed Tent City. We would get Nana and Papa in to babysit, and Mum and Dad would be charging.
That was nice weekend. That's the way every weekend in Dunedin.
I know.
We did have a few tips for that to happen. To be fair, that was just North Dunedin. That was called North Dunedin. That was the university.
To make it a big success, Super Round, do the matchups have to? Do we need some like marquee matchups? Do we need like some big? I don't know, derbies? Do you want the Crusaders Highlanders, or do you want the Crusaders Blues, or?
I want the Highlanders to play someone they can beat.
Oh well, I'm not sure there's
Whoa,
a team.
whoa. Look, that is such an unfair comment from an Islanders man. If you go back, no, don't get me started.
I'm going to back it up
Breathe,
because
I'll just breathe through the.
I did say at the start of my first podcast this year for the rugby podcast, I picked the Highlanders. I said Highlanders could make top 4 this year, and they were only they 7-8 games.
6 games.
No, but they missed 7 or 8 games by 1 score.
Oh, look,
that far away.
I suppose it's a season of what ifs for a lot of teams, and they were certainly one of those that there's a number of games that slipped away. But I think top 4 was always going to be a stretch. For the playoffs was going to be a successful year for them. So going back to the original question, do we need the marquee matchups? I think this is more about the event as a whole rather than who you might be playing. Yes, it might be great that you're having. But in saying that, I look at it a Tasman side of things. Do you use it in that sort of light where you're playing New Zealand versus Australia? And with Australia being more competitive this year, do we think that's going to carry on? We hope it carries on. But I think in some ways you would look at a derby. You would look at, say, the Crusaders. I mean, if you look at a rematch of this year's final, regardless of what happens, you go, you know what? Let's plant the seed of that. Well, it's a rematch of what happens this weekend. But I think how you sell this is actually with what's happening around the games, and it's in the new stadium. Because you talk to anyone who's been to the Dunedin Stadium, Forsyth Bar for the first time, everyone loves it. So I think a lot of the people who've done that once will go, you know what? What's the best time for me to go to Christchurch? Why not be with every team being there?
Because I've got 2 Highlanders here, just how do you see their season panning out next year? As Carl said, a whole handful of games where they were right in it and a score the other way, and they might have been on the right side of the ledger. And also, what do you think their biggest need is in terms of a position where maybe they lack a wee bit of depth?
Carl, you want to go first?
I think they're one marquee name away from having a good crack at finals. Where that position is, I don't know. There's been talking with the ACC boys quite a lot this season. They're all, I don't know if you've heard this, Jeff, but they're all in on if the Chiefs get the dub this week in the final, let's send D-Mac home. Let's send D-Mac back to Dunedin and let him steer the ship and bring some success.
That's the best first 5 in the competition. Yeah, that helps anybody. I mean, look, they will go as far as their first 5 takes them, because pretty much on every other aspect of their game, they're well and truly competitive enough. They're dangerous on the outsides. Obviously, Timothy Tabataba-Nawai, Jacob Atamatavuki Nikins, like Janan Nareki, who's fit. Like, there's enough there in the rest of the back line. It's a matter of how much better Cam Miller or Tane Robinson gets, or they find a marquee player to fill the 10 jersey. You just not, it's hard to be successful in this competition if you don't have a playmaker and decision maker in a key position, either at 10, and the Crusaders are doing it with David Havili at 12. So you have to have someone who leads you tactically. That's what the Highlanders need. They're pretty much everywhere else. They're not far away. So for the Highlanders, like most other teams, though, that's not easy to find. Well, that's the hardest position to find in the game in terms of the player that can kick goals, can drive around the park in different conditions. When it's time to go, can play. That's the hardest position to play in the competition. Like many teams, that'll be the difference between you winning and losing quite often.
You on board with that, Carl?
Yeah.
To bring D-Mac home, that's what you're saying. That's what we're on board with.
No,
we're all on board with that.
You think back to the success, when Jamie Joe, Lema Sopawanga was running the cutter at 10, like, is an All Black 10. Like, you bang on. You can't. Yeah.
Righty-ho. Let's have a look back at last
Derailed
week.
that real fast. didn't we?
No, well, for Highlanders fans, it sounds like you're not far away from a very, very good team. And any team that's coached by Jamie Joseph, you know that they're going to put the effort in regardless. So let's have a look back to last week. The two semi-finals. The first one was down in Christchurch where the Crusaders hosted the Blues. This is a matchup that have seen some monumental games. And this one didn't disappoint at all. It was all tied up at half time. The Crusaders' defensive effort over that final stanza, what was it? 3 or 4 minutes, I think it was.
40-odd phases.
It was just, that's the sort of performance that wins you championships, that wins you premierships. So if you look at that game, Carl, look, the Blues came, they threw everything at the Crusaders. I thought we might get a wee bit of extra time. It didn't happen in the end.
They should have scored.
They should have. And usually when the Blues have, 40-plus phases, you'd think that inside the opposition 20, you'd think they'd come out with some points.
The Blues, what's the word I'm looking for? I've gone blank. They gave up 16 penalties to the Crusaders 9.
Discipline.
Discipline, thank you, sir. The Blues discipline, not great. Heck of a game to watch. Will Jordan, very good player. The way he stood up Caleb Clark for that first try, out of nothing, got the ball and just flash, gone, try, bang. And then he's there again for that second crucial try, I think the 70th minute. There's a reason that they've, 31 in a row now? It's impressive stuff. It really is. It was a good game.
Yeah, Jeff, that defense was just, that's what won them the game in the end, you think? Or
Look, you shouldn't be able to defend your line for 40 phases or 20-odd phases. And I'm not convinced they did it 100% legally, but they were allowed to play. And then sometimes you've got to deserve extra time or the opportunity to win a game. And sometimes the referee goes, you know what, if you're good enough, take it. And the Blues, in those moments, under all sorts of pressure, with some remarkable pressure in terms of defence that has known how to defend their line for how many titles? That's what they've done. And this is what the Blues did last year to win their title. If you think about the way that they went about it, they just defended better than any other team in the competition and squeezed the life out of sides. This was a strange game when you talk about the indiscretions, you talk about the ill discipline, and neither team was interested in taking 3 points. It was bizarre when I'm watching a knockout game and points are on offer when it was going to be difficult to score tries. And what was surprising was because there was a few tries scored in the first half, it was almost like both teams felt, well, we'll still be able to score tries in the second half. But you go and watch any knockout game, last 20 minutes when it gets to the business end and there's nothing between the two teams, then scoring tries becomes virtually impossible. And I think both teams might look back, and in particular the Blues go, were there moments that we could have taken 3 points and then backed ourselves, which what they would have done last year is backed ourselves to not concede a try. So, look, I think ultimately did we get the right outcome? I think the Blues will be disappointed because to get up early like they did and then they slipped away based on a couple of plays, Joshua Futatua, and then the unfortunate collision from Hoskins to Tutu just made it that little bit more difficult for them to find what they needed to beat the Crusaders. So the remarkable part about this is it's 31-0 now in playoff games at home. I mean, that's an unbelievable record that no one's been able to go down the Christchurch. But I definitely think this is probably the one team, the Chiefs, that I think they're the best team with the best opportunity to go down and do this. But a lot will come down to one man, and it's Angus Gardner, the referee.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think how he looks at this game in terms of the laws of the game and emphasising offside lines, ruck defence, players around the ruck, how clean a game he wants and how he referees the first 20 minutes will certainly help, I think, one of these sides.
Cal, if that 31-0 record of the Crusaders at home in playoffs matches is a crazy record, crazy record. And as Goldie sort of pointed out there, they do get the rub of the green at times.
Careful, Mighty.
Well, I'm just saying they get the rub of the green. I mean, if you're defending on your goal line for 40-something phases, surely that you're not always back behind the line where you should be. Having said that, they were very, very impressive. They were good.
There was another period in the game earlier on where they did the same, right? Where Blues were bang, 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 and that's.
Look, I get it. I get it. I understand the pressure the referees are under. What I will say for James Dolman, he was consistent at both ends, and that's the one thing we often talk about with referees, right? It's all we really can ask for is consistency, and he could quite easily, just after halftime, given the Blues a yellow card for repeated infringements, repeated advantages and penalties, and he probably could have done the same for the Crusaders in the last 5 minutes. So the fact that he didn't do either, then you have to commend him for the fact, well, he was consistent in how he was approaching the game. The last thing he would have wanted is ignore one and then give another. Whereas he decided, no, you're going to have to work for it. If that was his philosophy going in, that's how he played it out. I'm happier for that than inconsistency.
That's fair.
Goldie brought up a point there where there are opportunities for both sides to actually kick points, and they decided to actually go for it. Now, we're on another podcast, The Advantage Line, Rugby League, and Teddy brought up a point with the Warriors where they've taken the kicks a number of times, and it changes the way that the opposition plays when instead of being all tied up, the Warriors are up by 2, and it just changes the sort of dynamic in and around the game. Do you think if the Blues had maybe taken a penalty here or there, that may have changed slightly? I mean, they may have been within 1 or 2 points in that final stanza, which meant a penalty shot would have got them the win.
I think you just have to look at the other game, Chiefs Brumbies. DMAC kicked 22 points, 6 penalties. That's finals footy, right? Take the points on offer, keep advancing, keep going, and be patient.
Right. That's a good segue. Let's move on to the second semi-final.
Pretty good at this, eh?
The Chiefs Brumbies, and although the final scoreline made it look like the game was fairly comfortable, and as you say, DMAC kicked points when they took the points when they were on offer.
Yeah.
But one of the big turning point, significant points in the game was DMAC's cover tackle to deny the Brumbies the referee awarded the try because it looked in real time. It looked like that's a try, and his ability to get his arm under the ball and keep it from touching the turf was just superb. Jeff, if you look
be on your list from last week,
that will be another. Yeah, we can think of that one instead of thinking of one from a Bledisloe Cup test. This one now replaces that one, and it's a positive for New Zealand. Jeff.
He might rip his own contract up.
All right, let's focus on the positive here. Even at the time, even live, actually, Mills and I immediately actually thought to ourselves, I'm not sure he's got this down. But the fact that the technique he used to do it as he's running at full speed to get his wrong arm underneath, that was the crazy thing. When I'm thinking to myself, if I'm going back, I'm trying to get my right arm. He's managed to run at full speed and managed to get his left arm underneath the player. Unbelievable. And in terms of the context of the game, the Chiefs were still well and truly in control. And even if he'd scored, they were probably still a little bit more comfortable, but it would have made it very interesting. And I think that's the difference in the games where you had one team that literally every time they got an opportunity to kick points, they did that. And They did it the week before, and it didn't come off against the Blues, the Chiefs. But that was a slightly different scenario in regards to where the Blues were at and what they were playing for the end of their season. The Brumbies, it's hard. We were debating this even on the show on Sunday night at Sky. We're not sure where they are because they keep getting to the same point in this competition. They keep getting to a semi-final and they haven't found a way for all of their experience to get closer. And were they a little bit hard done by as a winning quarterfinalist, to not have the advantage of being at home? And I think that's significant for them. Playing in Canberra is tough. But you got the sense on the weekend that the Chiefs are a better team and comfortably a better team. And it's a matter of where now we look at the Brumbies, we look at the Reds. They didn't really, fire a shot against the Crusaders in Christchurch. We've ended up at the right spot where clearly the Chiefs have been the best performing team, and they got a lot of significant plays from critical players. I will say this though, they looked a little bit different with Luke Jacobson being back, the captain being back. They just looked as though they had, and it's nothing to do with ability, but leadership sometimes is absolutely critical in playoff games. And I think there was a ruthlessness about this performance than probably the week before where they just didn't put the Blues away. I think the Brumbies sort of were they were chasing this game for long periods of time.
You mentioned D-Mac back to the Highlanders would make a huge, huge difference.
Yep.
The Brumbies losing Lolosio early on, that had to have had a major influence on this game as well.
Yes, but I think who's the forgive me, the guy that came on?
Debrasini.
Or JD.
Debrasini.
Yeah.
He played pretty well. Set up a couple of good tries. Yes, it would be rattling to lose your first 5 that early on, but I think they put in a pretty good effort after the fact.
But how many times did you see him run? I mean,
yeah.
So every team that has, you need a first 5, and this is where the Crusaders are a little bit different because they've had to survive without Richie Mo'unga, who was one of the most balanced Super Rugby first 5 we've seen. Because at Super Rugby, you are afforded an opportunity to run like you don't get in Test matches. Beauden Barrett, dangerous, but running with the ball. Damien McKenzie, the ability to create. Jack Debrasini, very good game manager, and kicks well. And can sort of run through your systems, but at no point is he going to break you over. And Noah Lolosio still had that in his arsenal with the fact he was prepared to go. And so every time you lose an attacking threat the first 5, it makes it harder, so much harder for you to put pressure on the opposition. So I think it did have a big effect. And it just made it harder for them to engage what they had in their midfield, who have been very, very good all year. So it was a game that was a lot of kicking. I don't think that suited the Brumbies. They're a team that what they try and do is hold on to possession for long periods of time, so they can then either, if they break them over with a short kicking game, or force penalties, so they can go to their line-out work, which is really, really good.
We saw that in their win over the Hurricanes, the Brumbies, that their passing is just, and it all starts from the first 5-8. If that first pass isn't crisp and on target, it all falls apart. But when it's done properly, they create so much space out wide or just in between the centre and the winger. And I think it's Corey Toole who just runs those very, very good lines off those short balls, and they create a lot of opportunities from that. So
I think they'll be bitterly disappointed because, you know how hard it is to play away from home. You know how hard it is, and they've been through these challenges before, and then to lose the guy that's run your game, who's been in charge all year, you lose him so early. It was always going to have an impact and have an effect, and I think it had enough of an impact that it just made it too hard for them.
Righty-ho. One more question for you boys. Should we have a super duper competition? For one
Copyright.
Yeah.
Copyright that.
You've thought deeply about that one.
Yeah. You can use that one, Goldie. I'll give that one to you. Where we have the top 4, the top 6, the top 8 teams from Super Rugby then go and play the top teams from the URC, where, of course, we saw Leinster pick up a big win with Geordie Barrett to the fore, or maybe another rugby competition. I mean, football have tried to do it. I mean, the UEFA Champions League is a sensational competition, but football have tried to do it with this World Club Championship competition where Auckland FC go up and play the likes of Bayern Munich, and it's a completely one-sided event.
Not Auckland FC though.
No, this is like this
is me and you.
This is the plumbers and the electricians. Yeah. So I don't want a competition like that, but I want something where would it be? Is it something that's feasible, Jeff? Is it something that would help ignite rugby? Maybe worldwide, give it another spark, sort of thing.
It's coming. I mean, I've talked about the World Club competition, so it's on World Rugby's. I think they're only talking 2 years, 3 years away, 2 years away. They're considering exactly how that plays out and who are participating. But as we know, the wheels in rugby union are very slow, and this has been on the cards for a while. But they are very much determined to get this up and running. Where the teams come from is obviously the critical part of it, and the strength of those sides. And that URC competition is a good competition. I'm interested more, and I'd start looking at the Premiership, top 14. There'd be Super Rugby. I think the URC is important because we'll find the best of the South African sides. That's what we need to find in regards to when you get the top 2, the top 3, top 4. The hard part is how do you make it to a point where it's long enough to it feels as though you get the right 2 teams at the end of it. I think that's the real challenge. I mean, are we better off just all right? Let's just do the URC. That's got all the top teams, and Super Rugby's got all the rest of the other the other top teams pretty much, and go just play a playoff. Just go on. 2 champions, have a go. To me, that was Leinster have just won, right? Whoever wins this weekend, go on. It's the same for both teams. Then get an independent venue or find somewhere special and go, this is a world event. I think that would be pretty cool. What they're proposing as a challenge, 4 pools of 3 and 4 qualifiers, and how do you set the pools up, and will you get the top 2 teams? Where I think you could almost argue that the competition we've got at the moment, the URC, it finds Leinster, which, let's be honest, Ireland. I mean, it's pretty much Ireland. I mean, I think that all their starting 15 were international players. Geordie Barrett was at 12, but the rest of them have played for Ireland. I mean, seriously, that's one unbelievable squad. Yeah. I did a number up on this weekend. I think there's going to be, across the 2 teams, 26 internationals playing in Christchurch this weekend. Across the 2 teams, I think there's 25 Kiwis and 1 Australian in James O'Connor. So you look at it and going, in terms of the strength of it, are they the 2 teams are the best? The French one is the you're not sure which one competition they're really trying in. They're really trying to win top 14. What would be nice to get a gauge on though is if you do have that knockout competition. How good is the team in Japan? How good are those sides with all of their imports, with their local players? Where do they stand? And at the moment, that's what we're getting with football, right? Auckland City goes and comes up against with a Bayern Munich. I mean, it should be 10-0, right? $1 billion versus a $100,000 club, or $1 million club versus a $100 billion club. Like that's what you're dealing with. So I just think for me, it's coming. What it looks like, and it'll be very, very interesting.
I think we need to get weird with it. Like, have truly global 4 quarters of the globe. The different encapsulates all competitions, and there's some sort of whether it's Super Rugby that builds up to this next lot of competitions and it just keeps going up and up, and then you do find out where the top Japanese side is, the top MLS side is, and where everything comes from, and. I don't know how that works. I'm not
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the challenges at the moment, I don't think they've invited an MLR club into it yet because they don't feel as though they're ready, right? You talk about the global game, though. Do you know how much flights cost? And players only go business class.
Well,
So, I mean, they're not prepared to go anywhere. They're up the front of the plane. And all of a sudden you start adding that all up. Oof.
cattle class, get to the back.
Righty-ho. So the major sponsor for the competition has to be an airline.
Absolutely. Emirates.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
I'm happy for them to use Super Duper as well, if that's what they want to go
Super Duper Emirates.
I won't charge them. Okay. Right. Why don't we get on to the final now? And the bookies can't separate the two teams. They're $1.90 the pair. Crusaders, Chiefs, $1.90 the pair. Cannot be separated by bookies. So if there is any movement in the market, it'll be down to where the bulk of punters are putting their money. The punters will decide who is the favourite going in to this Saturday night. The total is set at 50.5. But can you pick a favourite there, Carl?
I'm happy to. This is.
I mean, the Crusaders are at home. That 31-0,
Yes.
31-0. That is a significant record. But if you look at the two teams and the season as a whole, you'd have to say the Chiefs were probably the most consistent team throughout.
You've just nailed it. So the 31-0 massive. So the bookies obviously take that into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
They've obviously got the Chiefs on top as the better team. Home ground advantage comes into play, even Stevens. But I've got 3 stats here. If you want to find a way to back the Chiefs and bet the Chiefs, and in this run, Chiefs have won 5 of the last 7 against Crusaders. They have won 3 of the last 5 in Christchurch, and their away team has covered the line in 6 of the last 10 matchups between these two. The line pull is
half a
0.5. So those 3 stats suggest that the Chiefs can absolutely get this done, and I think they can too. I think they're the better team on paper. Yes, 31-0, but I like the Chiefs this week. Couple of other ones. Average total. What did you say the total was?
50.5.
So average total in the last 10 meetings between these two, 52.1. The average total dating back to 2009 is 48.3. So we're 2 points either side of this weekend's total. The average margin in the last 10, 12.3. Average margin going back to 2009, 11.5. They've played 3 times in the finals since 2009 and split 3-3.
Righty-ho. Jeff.
So if I was to ask you a question. So if you think about the fan base across the whole country, how much people do you think want the Chiefs to win? How many people want the Crusaders to win?
How many people in Christchurch?
No, yeah.
So
and pretty much everybody else.
Take away New Zealand's population from.
Wow.
Pretty much, right?
Yes.
I think it'd be fair to say that the rest of New Zealand outside of Canterbury and Tasman, because they get all their players from Christchurch, so outside of Tasman, so they want the Chiefs to win. Yep. Because, and I think for a whole lot of different reasons, but also, I think that we don't want to go back to a point where we feel as though we're back to the dynasty, because I think we got a little bit over it. But you have to have all the respect in the world, and I do, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I felt for Rob Penny last year, because that wasn't an easy situation for him to be in as a coach. So for them to get here after what they went through last year, it just shows their resilience and how good they are. But I think that by the end of this week, I've got a feeling that the fans will have spoken and the Chiefs will be favourites. And if this game was in Hamilton, they would be clear favourites. And I think for me, if I look at the way that they have played against the Crusaders, I think they've got a formula and a belief that they can win not just one way, but both ways. But once again, I come back to the nature of this contest. If if it doesn't open up at some point, if it doesn't just breathe a little bit in terms of a game being allowed to play, it swings heavily back in the Crusaders' favour. But I just get the sense that they're on this journey, the Chiefs, and the 31-0. I can talk from experience here, the fact that it's there, but when you're playing, it's not there. You're just in a game. At no point in that 80 minutes for the Chiefs are they thinking about it's 31-0. Like that just doesn't. It does. Everybody else just uses that as you see they're too hard to beat there. When you're playing a game, you're not even thinking about that. That's not. You're thinking about the next play. You're thinking about the context of the scoreboard and what you need to do. But I think by the end of the week, I think the Chiefs will be slim favourites, and I think rightfully so. And I've got them winning this game, but I haven't got them winning it easily, clearly, because the Crusaders will continue to push the boundaries. And they'll continue to make it incredibly difficult. And I think it's the fact that the leadership is going to be critical in terms of, I think the Chiefs will accumulate points. They'll take them in on offer. And they'll back themselves defensively to keep the Crusaders to a minimal point tally.
You're the former bookie.
Yep.
You think they've got it right?
Yes, I do. I do think if this game was played at a neutral ground, I think the Chiefs would be 3-point favourites. I think if this game was played in Hamilton, the Chiefs would be around a 6.5 or 7-point favourite. Wow. I think. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. So I think that's why they factored in that record that the Crusaders have built in Christchurch.
So just long range weather forecast.
Yep.
They're talking it's 7 degrees.
Cold AF.
It's cold, and there's a little bit of rain floating around. So all of a sudden, there's this. I would, if I'm talking a head-to-head here, I would wait though. I would wait a little bit closer just to see, in particular, that 50 weather conditions. You want to take those into account, absolutely.
Should we get to some punting? Are you ready for some punting?
Sure am.
Are you?
I'm going to make all my money back this week.
Here we go. Okay. Well, you lead us off.
What was that look?
Sorry. I don't know what was that. Actually, I don't know what that look was. I was actually thinking in my head how much pity would have to bet and the odds he would have to take to make his money back. That's what I was thinking. If he did, what would he be doing?
That's not gambling responsibly.
Okay.
This is.
Right. Show us some responsibility.
I've got a little 2-leg multi here.
Yep.
Under 50.5 total points into either team by 7.5 or less. Paying $4.26.
Oh.
Now he's on my side.
The little try bet. Yeah, don't mind that.
I think
in fact, I've got it in mind.
The try bet itself is
$2.10.
10.
Yeah.
That's
either team to win by under 7.5.
Yeah.
That I really like the look of that. And as you say, cold as frosty.
I know I said the margin in the last 10 between these two is 52, but 50 for a final seems incredible. I know the Blues put 40 on them last year, but I don't know.
So there's a lot of factors here, and yep. I think Angus Gardner, who's the referee, I think he's going to want a tidier game. I just think that's the way that he likes to referee. I think he's absolutely the right person to have the final. I think he's been the most consistent across the competition. And to me, that means I think he'll police the breakdown early. And if he does that, I think it does open up for a few more points. Because teams will be able to get territory a little. And if he goes to the whistle a little bit more early, territory, you'll get in positions to get points. So that's where I think it could change a little bit for me. I've just got a sense that he'll want that to be tidy. So there's no, it doesn't get into a point where it's a complete arm wrestle, and then you're going. He'll want it tidy around the breakdown.
So, having said that, Jeff,
where am I going?
Yeah. Did you? Where were you?
So I went overs. Because I get it. I'm going down that path, and I've got the Chiefs 1-12 and a little multi at 5.53. So then 1-12, I think the Chiefs win 1-12, and I think they'll get over 50 now. I think they'll only sneak over. I think, and I know that's unusual to go, but I think they'll get over. And then I'm just going to go $50 on that, and then just Chiefs 1-12 is 280. I think that's good money. In a tight game, and if the teams are going to win, I like that in terms of the margin. So 50 on that, I just split mine.
So just to confirm, your first 50 is on
over 50.5,
right,
and Chiefs 1 to 12.
Yep, and
That's
then your second
553,
50,
and the
yep,
second 50 is just Chiefs 1 to 12.
1 to 12. Okay,
Just picking them. So that's how I see it playing out. But we're on what day are we? Tuesday. The teams will come out. Good news that Sean Stevenson's playing. Looks as though he's being cleared to play. So that really does help, I think, because they would have had to reshuffle a little bit. I do like this young Josh Jacob, though. He's come on really nicely for the Chiefs, And you notice, I don't know if you noticed, they made a subtle change when he comes on. Earlier on in the season, D-Mac was going to fullback and Jacob was going to 10. Well, on the weekend, D-Mac stayed at 10 and Jacob has grown into the ability to play at 15. So I really, really like what they're doing there as well. They've learnt from that combination through the course of the season.
He has. He's made an impact when he's come on. He's been very, very good. I'm going to go a couple of bets. I'm going to go $80 on either team to win by under 7.5 at $2.10. And they're going to have a $20 same game multi. I'm going to have Severis to score a try and Leroy Carter to score a try. $20 on those two. Although I was very, very keen to take a couple of forwards, one forward from each side, because I think we might see that goal line defense get broken by those just pick and goes. I can't see that. I can't see either team holding the other team out for 20 plus phases, let alone 40 plus. So yeah.
Does it not just I know we do this on a Tuesday, early in the week, but finals week, at least finals week, surely give us the teams early.
Come out Wednesday afternoon. They come out Wednesday at 4:00, and it's been constant through the whole season, which I think has been really good. They've made sure it didn't used to come out until late on Thursday. We had 48 hours, I think, before the games were. Yeah, I mean, tomorrow at 4, we'll see the sides, but you're not going to see anything significant. Probably the one big one is to Mikey Williams for the Crusaders if he's back. Like I say, Stevenson's been cleared out of the game on the weekend. I don't think there was anything else of concern for either team. Was there anything we can remember that came off? No, I don't think so. I don't think no. Yeah, so we're going to see the best of the best, right? And that's exactly what we want.
I've got one more question that I didn't put in the schedule.
God.
You've always got one more question.
Is there any player on either side who might be on the bubble of All Black selection who needs to have a big game to make Razor's first squad of the international season? Is there anyone that you can have a look at and go, if this guy has a huge game, then he probably just sneaks in?
I'll defer. I'll hand up. Have not watched enough.
I could name probably half a dozen guys.
There you go. I'll take one of his.
Because we're obviously the All Black team's being named next Monday. First squad's been named next Monday. So, you're looking at a whole lot of matchups in this game and you're going, okay, where does Quinta Pye sit with David Havili right now? Both have had a remarkable season, but slightly different players. I think David Havili is 100% in their picture. But Quinta Pye, and the way that he's gone about his business, if he had a big game in this matchup, it would go a long way to him forcing their hand in terms of having to make a decision about him and maybe somebody else. Amoni Narawa on the right wing. You've Severis. Leroy Carter's form's been really, really good. If Leroy Carter had a blinder in this game, his game has really developed through the course of the season. But I think, for Amoni Narawa, he was a guy that sort of fell out of favour, was in the All Blacks briefly last year and then all of a sudden missed out on the Rugby Championship squad and then was never seen again. If he goes out and has an absolute blinder, it's just a reminder, hold on, I do things that are a little bit different to everybody else, Am I the younger version and impactful player than Severis, Who's going to be around in 2 years' time? George Bowers had a really, really good season. Can he force his way up against an Ethan de Groot and going, hold on, you haven't seen Ethan for a couple of weeks, here I am and I'm still going, I think there's a number of guys. Think about Samasoni Tokiaho. We know Asafa Amu is floating around. You've got George Bell, who obviously was in favour with the All Blacks. So for me, there's a whole lot of guys, Sammy Penny-Finau, Ethan Blackadder. You got two guys there who are pretty much they're fighting. Luke Jacobson, he's probably in the conversation with Ethan Blackadder in terms of if you're going to judge a player, this is the guy, this is the game that you say, hey, pick me, because this is a final, this is all about pressure, this is all about delivering in the big moment. So, like I say, there's going to be 25 or 26 All Blacks on show, of which probably 18 of them are guaranteed to have their names written down, but there's probably 8 guys going, I'm going to fight with somebody else. So, like Dalton Papali'i tried to put his hand up last week, it's now up to Sammy Penny-Finau, Simon Parker, there's been a lot of talk about him with the Chiefs. He didn't play, he was ruled out. He might come in for this game. He's another player that you're going, this is your big opportunity, You want to see Wallace Satiti have a big game. He's had a solid season, a return from a major injury. We know his prodigious talent. Christian Leawilli. See all his names? I can keep going. This is what's beautiful about this game. Quite often, this is what I love this where we've got to, because you would expect after this game, Sunday's a long day for the All Black selectors. Surely, you'll be looking at this game intently, because you want to be able to justify every name that you write down to play against France in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, I'll take one of those.
Yeah, well, you say, I haven't seen the Highlanders in, 2 or 3 weeks. Is it a case of sometimes out of sight, out of mind? And because we've got these two teams playing, and they've been playing for the last 3 or 4 weeks when other teams haven't been, that the advantage then falls towards a player who is taking part, a fringe player who is taking part in the final, having a big game, and then maybe, I don't know if this is how the selectors do it, but they've already got a few players penciled in, and then this guy in the final just has a blinder, someone like a Leroy Carter or something like that, and then you go, oh, actually, we've got to include, he has to be in, so now someone else has to be out.
Well, you think about Wallace Satiti last year. So his last 3 games, all of a sudden you saw this, he had 2 or 3 big performances, and then you couldn't not pick him. And so it's at that point, before those 3 games, was someone else's name already written in, or was it in pencil? There's I still believe 100% that you can't deny form in the biggest moments. And so there'll be guys, like you say, there's someone who's not playing and someone who is playing. And if there's a decision to be made and this guy does it and he's still playing, you're going to go with him surely, So for someone like a Timothy Tavatavanawa, that's the hard part, right? He had such a great campaign, but he hasn't been seen for a couple of weeks. And so his body of work up against a Quinn Tupai's, we haven't seen Anton Leonard-Brown. He could be in addition to this game on the bench. I'll be surprised, but he could be. He was doing the warm-up before the game in Hamilton, so his name could be on the team sheet, and that his sort of experience in a playoff game, it could be really, really handy. So. And he's the guy. He's thinking, you haven't seen me for 2 months a year. I've played 60-odd tests, 70 tests, but I haven't played much rugby. So I think there's a lot of great debate here. Like I said, we're going to know a lot more at 9 o'clock on Saturday night.
Fantastic. I think we've made it to the end of another pick and go. Carl, anything else you want to add before we say goodbye?
Nah, I'm good. There's a few things, but we'll...
But save it.
Paulie, you've got one more chance to talk about Sydney in 1994 if you really want to.
I promise I will not bring that up
until the Bledisloe Cup. We're not even in Bledisloe Cup season, and you're bringing it up.
No, all righty. Thanks to Jeff Wilson for joining us once again. He's been fantastic as always. Don't forget to join us next week, where we will review the Super Rugby Pacific 2025 Grand Final, and we'll have a look at the Razor Robertson's first All Black squad for the season. Carl, thanks for jumping in at late notice and helping out. It was a bit bit daunting having two Highlanders up against me today.
I will say this: can we get a computer that hasn't got up the Wars and Warriors next time? This is a rugby podcast. Rugby podcast.
Good point.
I know, yeah, I think I've got a Highlander sticker in my bag. I need to slap that on.
Yeah, just in the corner there.
Yeah, sorry, man.
That's
Beauty.
all right. That's all right. To be fair,
Righty-ho.
Give me a photo of your head, and I'll put it on there. Maybe the try 94. Let's get out of here.
Oh,
This
it's
is
time
it.
for me to go.
We've gone over time. Once again, thanks for tuning in and listening and or watching the Pick and Go. And don't forget, join us next week when we'll be back again with the Pick and Go.